processing factory, and a rice seedling producing plant. A garment factory, which was commissioned by His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in 2016. The factory is the biggest globally, seating over 500 workers at a shift. This factory partners the Central Bank of Nigeria Anchor Borrowers project.
In terms of size, and having looked at what they also have produced in terms of what they're able to produce and the attention that's being given to the entire process, I would say that, without doubt, it can compete with any garment factory in the world.
We have over 500 here. With every turn you take here, you see an embroidery machine. I'm blown away.
In the same vein, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, during one of his visits to the state, commissioned the rice seedling producing plant.
Conceiving project such as this, Governor Ayade has a keen eye for tomorrow.
Industrialization is laudable. An industrialized state stands to experience a high economic revival with controllably reduced crime rate.
The ones that are in the village that we have nothing doing at all, today they can boast of their own shop, their own store where they can feed their family, as the younger ones can sponsor them paying their school fee. I think we have benefited much from this government.
We can also include the customers we get our fabrics from, because to an extent too, we are also increasing their income.
With these, we foresee Cross River State liberated from purely a civil service economy to an industrialized one.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
We want to talk about rights, there are obligations. I'm not saying that this government is a saint, it's very far from it. But there are things that we can do to make it better, and that's the challenge I'm throwing to you. You don't want to build this nation? I don't know where else you want to go. If I had a choice, I'll come back. When I stand outside and I hear what you have to say about this country that I know,
President Buhari challenges member states to leverage on African Continental Free Trade Area to double intra-African trade by 2030.
Federal government restates commitment to partner with National Judicial Council towards ensuring financial independence of the judiciary.
And more law school campuses to come on stream as Senate begins process of reforming Nigerian legal system.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the new National Development Plan 2021 to 2025.
All right, about a week ago precisely, the Federal Executive Council approved the new National Development Plan for the period of 5 years, beginning from 2021 to 2025.
Now, the new plan is a successor to the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, that's ERGP, which was earmarked to have an investment size that, of course, lapsed last year. But for the new development plan, it is targeted to have an investment size of nearly 350 trillion naira over the 5-year period. I take that again. The investment size for the new national development plan is around about 350 trillion naira over a 5-year period.
Okay, so let me just say that the investment size, again, is to be jointly handled by the public, and the public here means national and subnational governments, and also the private sector. Now, according to the plan, the public, including the federal and subnational government, will contribute 49.7 trillion naira, that's of the investment size, representing 14.3%, while the private sector will contribute 298.3 trillion naira, representing 85.7%.
The National Development Plan is structured along 6 clusters, namely economic growth and development, infrastructure, public administration, human capital development, social development, as well as regional development.
The plan also projects an average real GDP growth of 5% per annum over the 5-year period. That's taking us from the 2-point-something% we're doing at the moment.
That's right. That's the projection, 5% over the 5 years that the National Development Plan will be implemented. And of course, significantly, the plan also guarantees a 140 billion naira boost for youth and sports development in the country. Now, this is sequel to the reclassification of sports as a business by the administration.
And maybe we should also add, before we look at the other provisions, that it also projects lifting about 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. Well, that's part of it. But the funding strategy for implementation will include broadening the tax base and expanding the capacity of the private sector through creating investment opportunities and delivering quality engagements in incentives. So, I mean, when you hear broadening the tax base,
well, that's to say the more businesses you have, the more persons, that's to say legal persons, those who work there, as well as the businesses, also become taxable, and then they contribute to the treasury. But at the same time, the more efficient collection of taxes will also be particularly useful in this regard. But what kind of incentives are required to ensure the effective implementation of the development plan? Now, which tax base and which private sector capacity should be expanded to realize the objectives of the development plan? And how often should the implementation committee report to the appropriate authority?
Okay, and what roles, excuse me, should the subnationals play, which is very critical in the realization of the National Development Plan? Again, what strategies are in place already to ensure full implementation of the plan, because that's usually the issue, implementation. What is the level of implementation of the ERGP? We would also be scrutinizing that. How will the gap be bridged between December 2020 and now? What are the modalities? There's so many questions to ask, but this is very, very fundamental. What are the modalities to make the private sector to key in, or to ginger them to key into the plan, to enable, of course, them contribute their quota to the success of the plan. Mind you, they are contributing over 80% to this investment portfolio. So those are some of the questions, some of the issues we intend to raise with our guests as we welcome them onto the program much later on. We'll also discuss, again, let me remind you, our topic today is National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. And it's happening right here on Good Morning Nigeria, Tuesday's edition on the network service. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak. Thank you, all of you, for joining us.
My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague to also welcome you to the program, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we have our usual complimentary segments, and these include business and newspaper review. For now, here is Tessie Omeri with the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Tessie.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari says the inability of Africa to domesticate the production of most basic requirements and provide jobs to the teeming dynamic population is largely responsible for the challenges of security, economy, and corruption bedeviling the continent. He therefore challenged member states to put a stop to the reliance on imports by leveraging on the African Continental Free Trade Area to double intra-Africa trade by 2030 through effective collaboration between public and private sectors. The president stated this in Durban, South Africa at the second intra-African trade fair.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is for made in Africa products and services. As we implement, we must ensure that we create jobs and enhance revenues for all parties. We must leverage on one another's strengths to succeed.
Federal government says it will continue to partner with the National Judicial Council towards ensuring that the judiciary is financially independent and effectively and sustainably retains a preeminent position. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said this while declaring open the 2021 All Nigerian Judges Biennial Conference holding in Abuja.
Financial independence is not just desirable, but it is crucial, vital, imperative, and constitutional.
We are part of the global marketplace for investments and legal services. The extent to which we can attract business to our country depends in part upon investor perception of the quality of our justice delivery system.
Meanwhile, Senate has begun the legislative process of reforming the Nigerian legal system through the amendment of 3 extant laws. The public hearing on the amendment bill seeks to expand the statutory obligations of body of benchers and to increase the number of law schools campuses in Nigeria.
We are approaching this event with a great zeal, in line with the Senate's desire to contribute its quota to meeting the yearnings and aspirations of the people.
Our responsibility as lawmakers is to provide the avenue, enable environment.
If you're also going to have a multi-campus system, we must also tax the state government in each of the geopolitical zones.
And on security, Ministry of Police Affairs is collaborating with international security agencies to ensure that the National Central Bureau of the Interpol in Nigeria is adequately equipped to support the Nigerian police force to deliver on its mandate. Minister of Police Affairs Muhammad Megari Denyadi stated this at the flag-off of the 2021 Interpol Week in Abuja.
I want to assure all that as the necessary tools are being provided to the police, we also work at improving the welfare of police officers.
I commend the courage of officers of the Nigeria Police Force and other law enforcement agencies who are in this platform, who have kept the spirit of Interpol alive and have been engaging in daunting task of policing our vast nation.
Talking cultural diversity, events for the 34th National Festival of Arts and Culture, NAFEST, began in earnest in Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State Capital. Hamis Urogo reports that it is an exciting beginning, reflecting the power of Nigerian diversity and how culture continues to serve as a bond of unity, progress, and livelihood.
It's a statement of fact that this country, what unites us is bigger than what divides us. What we've seen here today is a statement of fact.
Oh, the picture is that of unity, celebrating Nigeria in diversity is a good thing.
Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 says citizens who are procuring vaccination cards without receiving vaccination will soon be exposed and prosecuted. Chairman of the PSC and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, at the national briefing also emphasized that the no vaccination, no work mandate for federal workers will commence on the 1st of December.
Since shortage is not there again, we have 12 million now in stock. We are starting with public servants, federal public servants. And I believe by the time we meet with the Governors Forum today or anytime soon, and they adopt it, it means that it's going to be a national policy of vaccine mandate for public officers.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has announced 30 new cases of COVID-19 in 8 states in the country. In the latest figures, Abia State has 9 new infections, followed by Bauchi with 7. Kaduna and Kano states have 4 each. Cross River and River states have 2 each, while Bayelsa and Jigawa recorded 1 case each. For now, Nigeria has 213,177 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 205,770 of them treated and discharged, while 2,968 died of the virus. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Claire after this break. Thanks for watching.
How to make a perfect bowl of love? A perfect blend of taste that brings every ingredient to life. The fusion of different spices. The unique aroma that rejuvenates your senses. The heartwarming deliciousness. And the satisfaction that comes from every bite, which makes you say, I love my Indomie.
Enjoy the reward that sharing brings with the Airtel Family Plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now.
Now everybody knows that.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol, Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Give your kids winning energy. Milo Active Go. With the goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa, helps them make the most of every day. Milo, the energy to go further.
The digital switchover project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, is one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as Free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them have self-production, employing several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria must overcome Blue Sharks of Cape Verde on the road to Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup. Will they be successful? At the Testing Beloga Stadium, it's Nigeria versus Cape Verde in the African World Cup qualifier, showing on the network service of the NTA and Wazobia TV. With live radio broadcasts on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join us online at sporty.com and MPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by Bet Niger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Right, let's start off with our business news this morning. And good news, Nigeria's inflation has fallen further to 15.99%. That's in October. Alika Okpanache Arwa will bring us all the details.
Latest monthly data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation, increased by 15.99% year-on-year in October 2021, showing 7 months of consecutive drop in inflation. On month-on-month basis, the headline index increased by 0.98% in October 2021, lower than the rate recorded in September 2021. Statistician General of the Federation, Simon Harry, who released the figures on Monday, said the Consumer Price Index measures average change in the prices of 740 goods and services across the country.
And in the case of month-on-month change, there was a decline from 16.63% recorded in the month of September 2021 to 15.99% in the month of October 2021. With this, it means that the declining trend for about 7 months portends a positive change or signal given the favorable economic conditions that the rate of inflation in Nigeria certainly will continue to maintain the trend.
The data also shows that the urban inflation rate was higher than that of September, as it increased by 16.52% year-on-year in October 2021 from 14.81% recorded in September 2020, while the rural inflation rate increased by 15.48% from 13.68%. On a month-on-month basis, the urban index rose by 1.0% in October 2021, down by 0.19% recorded in September 2021. Looking at the stock market, the equities market closed Monday trading session in red. The all shares index shed 0.05% at 43,230.34 points. 293.4 million shares valued at 4.3 billion naira exchange hands in 4,239 deals and equity capitalization at 22.5 trillion naira. The financial services industry dominated the activity charts with FBN Holdings, Access Bank and FCMB in the top 3 equities. With business news, Alika Okpanache Arwa.
Many thanks, Alika, for the business news. Up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, thank you for joining us. Bayo Atoyobe is right here with us. Bayo.
Good morning, Claire.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning, Kingsley.
Right,
Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper, the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Below the nameplates, you have an update of school children still in captivity. Federal Government College, Birni Yauri, been in captivity for 154 days, according to the paper. And Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama in Kaduna, you have the figure there saying they've been in captivity now for 136 days. That's for those who have not been freed. Lekki Toll Gate, that's the kicker. Panel says 11 dead. Lekki Toll Gate, panel says 11 dead. That's on page 34 in greater detail. Boa Chair, that's the kicker, is cheaper to transport container from China to Lagos than Lagos to Kano. It's cheaper to transport container from China to Lagos than Lagos to Kano. Troops kill 50 ISWAP fighters in Borno as bandits execute 15 persons in Sokoto and attack Zamfara village for failing to pay levy. And right at the foot of the front page, that's the second lead story. It says Buhari approves fresh 656.1 billion naira bailout for states as governors meet over Party Club refund. And then on the right-hand side, you have a panel of headlines there. It says Ohaneze wants autonomous region. Sani Dangote's body arrives Kano today for burial. Sani Dangote is the younger brother to Aliko Dangote, that he was vice chair of the Dangote Group. Sani Dangote's body arrives Kano today for burial. Nigeria on alert as Iranian cyber spies target telcos and ISPs. Claire.
Yes, Kingsley. Let me start with the Al Jazeera Nigerian newspaper, and it has it as its bold caption, Gumi establishes school for bandits. Gumi establishes school for bandits, and it comes with 2 riders. Insists education amenities key to stopping banditry, and 6 partnership with FG states and LGs. And okay, let's take a look at the other stories from the Nation newspaper. The terror financing EFCC to beam searchlight on NGOs, says Bawa. And the lead story, federal government ASU on war path over unmet demands. And varsity teachers serve 3-week notice to resume strike. Government implementing pact. Now, just tucked in there, you find the various demands, ASU demands, funding for revitalization, earned academic allowances, EAA, outstanding promotion arrears, renegotiation of 2009 pact, inconsistency in IPPIS payment, and UTAS. So these are some of the demands ASU is making. Now, opposition mounts against zonal law school campuses. It's also trending at on the front page there. Let me take you above the nameplate. NCC, Iranian hackers targeting telecoms and internet service providers. It's on page 28. You can find the details of that story. Gunmen kill 15 in Sokoto community attack. It's on page 3. And the big story today, inflation falls from 16.36% to 15.99%. Buhari governors Tinubu mourn Dangote. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Claire. Let's start with the story about the Academic Staff Union, who has now reminded everyone that it is now given a 21-day ultimatum over a memorandum of understanding signed with the federal government in December 2020. ASU President Professor Emmanuel Osudeke says that it may be compelled to reinstate the 9-month strike it patriotically suspended. ASU went on strike March 2020 over disagreement with the federal government funding enrollment on IPs and also on N allowances and other issues. ASU and government signed an agreement to address the demands, which led ASU to suspend the strike patriotically. The 22.1 billion N allowances was captured in the 2021 supplementary budget, and also the 30 billion revitalization fund for federal universities promised by the National Universities Commission, ASU says, are yet to be disbursed. Government has also said that it has fast-tracked the implementation. Government has also not fast-tracked the implementation of UTAS, the University Tertiary Accounting System, which ASU has recommended. The Punch reports that the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Nwajuoba, says that ASU failed to give a breakdown of people to be paid earned allowances. He said, yes, they earned the allowances, and the earned allowances is individual, not that of an association. The Minister of State pointed out that there were issues with the first allowances paid, so ASU is to provide a breakdown of the lecturers who earn the allowances. Meanwhile, ASU says that citizens should hold Nigerian government responsible. Should it be forced to reactivate the strike it patriotically suspended on December 23rd, 2020. It took over 10 months now for ASU's patients to be exhausted, and now they are threatening to go back to the strike. The last strike lasted 9 months. That is 270 days for which public universities were denied of any academic activities. On the issue of the economy, there has been some indication that there has been improvement in revenue and reduction in the expenditure by the second quarter of the year. Central Bank data shows that fiscal deficit in the second quarter was about 1.9 trillion, narrowing down from 4.7 by 4.7%. It was 25 trillion and is now 62% of what it was in the first quarter. The quarter on quarter, yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. The other concern story was the story Kingsley read about terrorism. Daily Trust reports that 50 ISWAP, Islamic State in West Africa terrorists were neutralized by officers and operators. We recall that it was when soldiers were giving a response to the invasion of ISWAP in Askirauba that Brigadier General Zarma Zikirusu was ambushed, and he paid the supreme sacrifice. In Kano, the police in Kano have rescued an 80-year-old Alhaji Nadabo from abductors in Chiromawa area, local government area. Police, upon receiving the report, the Commissioner Samaila Shuaibu Diko deployed members of Operation Pofada, and they succeeded in rescuing the 80-year-old man.
Yeah, I'd like us to look at this issue of, should I say, protracted ASU demands and strikes, or this, wrangling between government and ASU. I mean, the story on the front page of The Nation this morning, it's quite confusing. ASU has listed a number of demands, which they claim have not been met. But right here, the Minister of Labor and Employment is saying that the money has been released, has been disbursed, and that they should go back to the employers to find out the progress of things. So, I mean, what is going on?
The Minister of Education said that, look, as far as we are concerned, we have responsibility over superintending over education. When it comes to payment, it is the Ministry of Finance. And the information available is that it has been budgeted, and it is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance to disburse to the appropriate authorities and left for it to trickle down. Apparently, there seems to be a communication gap, but they ought to have resolved that. But the critical point here is that the life of public universities is also at the instance of another strike. We don't know how long this will go. The last one that was patriotically called off lasted 9 months, 270 days. There was no academic activity in public universities. So that is, in fact, the crux of the editorial of the Al Jazeera today.
Okay.
There too, they are talking about the fact.
True.
Yes.
Okay, let me quickly take it there.
The editorial,
yes.
page 3.
The editorial on Al Jazeera is on averting another ASU strike, and the crux of the matter Of course, like we read, is that the union is lamenting despite meeting with the Minister of Labor and Employment on major outstanding issues, including those that we have read out, that the inconsistencies in IPPIS payments and other issues have not yet been addressed. Okay, let me quote the Oshodeke. He says, ASU is fully committed to upholding academic integrity in our universities and working to make them more globally competitive. We are equally committed to promoting, and I think this story continues on page 3, but the bottom of it is how...
The cause of it all is that the editorial is saying that some of the issues that are leading to the strike are avoidable, and so they should do something about that to stem and protect the public university. But yesterday, the judicial panel in Lagos of inquiry on the restitution of victims of SARS-related abuses submitted its report. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has appointed a 4-man panel, white paper panel, and it's to be headed by the Lagos State Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, Moyosori Onigbanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Some snipers from the report indicate that according to the Punch, a copy of which was made available to it, 9 protesters were confirmed dead, while 4 were presumed dead. Daily Trust report 11 dead. The Punch also says that 48 names were listed as casualties of the incident. Among the 48, about 28 sustained gunshot injuries, while 13 others were assaulted by the military. So,
okay, well, I mean, this is a matter that's been controversial. That's to say what happened at the Lekki toll gate on the 20th of October, 2020. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity of returning to that subject. Just to indicate that Sani Dangote, Aliko Dangote's younger brother, was 61 years old. And according to the Daily Trust newspaper, he had been battling with colon cancer before he succumbed in the U.S. They say his body has been flown back to Kano today for prayers and interment. Sani Dangote had been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria here in the Abuja studios, as well as in our Lagos network center. May so rest in peace. Okay.
Amen. And just before we bid you farewell,
Super Eagles are playing the Blue Sharks of Cape Verde. Our qualification depends on either a win, or a draw.
And those Cape Verdean boys
are very unpredictable.
They are very unpredictable. They are determined. They have 10 points. Am I correct?
Yes, we have 12. They have 10.
12
if they
so
win,
it's a critical...
they'll get 13 and they will be in the
cold.
Oh my
God.
But the Super Eagles are determined.
I wouldn't watch.
They are
because
determined.
The Super Eagles are unpredictable. I wouldn't watch.
They have stressed one thing. They said many of the players in the camp now will be an opportunity for them to be at the World Cup for the first time, and they will put everything into it to make sure.
We keep saying that. See, how thirsty are those boys? Are they as thirsty as the boys from Cape Verde?
Yes.
We'll get and say, I know Kingsley doesn't want to talk about it, but please, Kingsley, I'd like to talk about these law school campuses, zonal law school campuses. It's still a bill which Senator Smart Adeyemi, has presented. But my question is, who is going to fund them?
Well, some legislators and other lawyers, I said, describe it as law school by politics. And they have opined that rather than establish and proliferate law schools all over, why don't you equip those that are available and fund it properly to function?
Well, the law schools that you have at the moment, they're still expanding for some of them that are new. But we raised this issue some weeks ago when Senator Smart Adeyemi first proposed it. I think it was during the first reading or so in the Senate, say that it will be done by geopolitical zones. I don't see the utility of that because already you have a number of law school campuses that are spread throughout the geopolitical zones. You have a law school campus in Lagos. That's the original law school in Lagos. That's to say, assuming you say that's for Southwest, it covers Southwest. You have a law school here in Abuja. If you say that North Central, it covers North Central. There is a law school in Kano, the campus, that's Northwest. There's a law school in Yola, that's Northeast. You have a law school campus in Enugu. And then you also have a law campus in Bayelsa. in Bayelsa,
Bayelsa,
and then
which is
Port
south
Harcourt Governor Nyesom Wike is building one, and approval has been given for it. And I recall when we were discussing it on that occasion, the DG of the law school had just visited the excuse me, ongoing construction work at the law school in Rivers. So that also will cover the south side. So you have, you know,
represented.
You have a number of law school campuses that are already available. So the thing to do, and I remember saying this, it is not just the physical structure that you say you have a law school. It has to do with your faculty, and then the quality of your library, and then the access that the students would have for attachment, either to chambers or to courts. That's what a law school is about. It's not that, as you said, politics of law school expansion. When we had only one law school at Victoria Island in Lagos, was that not sufficient? Because of course, population has also grown, and it has become necessary together. I think it's a bill.
Should give the yellow card.
I think it's a bill. I think it's a bill that should be shut down. Look for more productive things to expend the energies on.
We're discussing national development plan. Yes. It's a new national development plan. Of course, it's a plan that is very inspiring, given the investment investment portfolio. So let's see what it will cover. Bayo, again, thank you very much.
Thank you too.
I'll be here on Friday, so I'll see you on Friday. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at that development plan we're talking about.
Hey there, what's on your bucket list? Would you like to travel the world, live your best life? What if I told you you could blow right this minute and do everything on that list? Airtel is saying thank you to all loyal customers. You stand a chance to win up to 100 million naira with guaranteed cash tokens in the Airtel Recharge and Blow promo. How awesome is that? All you have to do is recharge to win. For more information, dial *444*4# to enter for the draw. Everyone's a winner, so hurry now. The more you recharge, the more you win.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Shola, come and help me. You need to learn.
But I'm more interested in drawing.
How are you going to be part of the business if you don't learn?
You just don't understand.
Morning. Anyone for some Lipton?
The rich taste of Lipton awakens body and mind.
Let me have a look at your drawings. Son, these designs are amazing.
Lipton Yellow Label Tea. Awaken to what really matters.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Dear compatriots, our country can be as great as we want.
Let us all commit ourselves to its greatness.
We must be willing to set aside our differences, unite and stay as one.
In our expansive landmass, human and material resources, and plurality lies our strength.
Let our challenges lead us to rediscover our common ground, and together, let's find solutions.
This will take some time, so it requires patience, tolerance, and forgiveness from every one of us.
Let all hands come on deck to protect and transform our country.
Let us unite and see each other not as adversaries, but as brothers and sisters.
Together, we can build a better Nigeria for ourselves and for the next generations.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, with support from Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria must overcome Blue Sharks of Cape Verde on the road to Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup. Will they be successful? At the testing below the stadium, it's Nigeria versus Cape Verde in the African World Cup qualifier, showing on the network service of the NTA and Wazobia TV. With live radio broadcasts on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join us online at sporty.com and MPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by Bet Niger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
All right, let me warmly welcome you to our conversation platform on Good Morning Nigeria. Today we're looking at the National Development Plan, the new National Development Plan, which will cover 2021 to 2025. That's about 5 years in all. But of course, to take you back, post-independence in 1960, we've had various development plans, I think about 4 known ones, and then we've also had the rolling plans. We also have several other initiatives, that targeted at growing our economy. But the big question will be, for this new one, how will the plan be faithfully implemented? As those before it, of course, have had their own evaluations. So what can be done to achieve this set objectives for this new development plan 2021 to 2025? Let's listen into our correspondent backgrounder, Ekene Intoloe, for starters.
For decades now, Nigeria has had a series of development plans spanning from the Colonial Development Plan of 1958 to 1968. Since then, the country has recorded a relatively long experience in development and national rolling plans with mixed results. Some of the major strategic initiatives include the Structural Adjustment Program, the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, the Strategy for Attaining the Millennium Development Goals, and the 7-point agenda, most of which were not seen to have been effectively implemented. Then came second quarter of 2016, when Nigeria entered an economic recession. The present administration developed the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan for 2017 to 2020 for the purpose of restoring economic growth. The 2021 to 2025 National Development Plan, which recently got the approval of the Federal Executive Council, is designed to succeed the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which expired in December 2020. The new National Development Plan was structured along 6 clusters, namely economic growth and development, infrastructure, public administration, human capital development, social development and regional development, with an investment size of 348.7 trillion naira over the 5-year period. Contributions for this investment is expected to come from both the public and private sectors. The public sector will contribute 49.7 trillion naira, or 14.3% of the investment size, while 298.3 trillion naira, or 85.7%, will come from the private sector. Are Nigerians going to see a new narrative from the long list of previous development plans? What difference will this plan have in the lives of citizens? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be speaking to the issues in a moment.
Joining us to discuss this issue, we would like to welcome via Zoom, she's joining us from Lagos, Hajia Zainab Ahmed, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. Honorable Minister, it's our pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning. You can see her on the left side of your screen.
Good morning.
And we also have joining us for the conversation, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, also via Zoom, Dr. Muda Yusuf is former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Muda Yusuf, delight to have you on Good Morning Nigeria again.
Good morning.
Okay, let's go to our Benin Network studio where we have Ambassador Ayola Olukani, who is the Director General, NASIMA. He joins us, of course, from there. Excellency, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. From Benin, where NASIMA is having his 4th ESCO and council meetings. This is a very, very lucky one for us.
Thank you. All right, we'll return back to you. But back here in the studio, we have our very own, he's a familiar face, Niyi Akinshijo, who is a financial and investment analyst. Mr. Akinshijo, thank you for joining us always.
My pleasure as always. Thanks so much.
All right. Once again, our pleasure to have you all with us this morning. But let's begin with the Honorable Minister of Finance, Hajia Zainab Ahmed. Honorable Minister, we would, of course, stay with you for a while so that we get into some of the highlights, if not details, of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. If my memory serves me right, this is probably the first time we are having a National Development Plan so labeled in several decades. We've had all kinds of strategy papers and documents and growth projections and so on and so forth. But in terms of having a National Development Plan, so-called, this is the first we're having in several decades. The most popular, and that's the last one I remember very well, was that of General Gawan, 1970 to 1974. So, Honorable Minister, tell us what is unique about the new National Development Plan 2021 to 2025.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to discuss the national plan. Good morning, Nigeria. What is unique about this plan is a couple of things. First of all, this is truly a national plan. It is not a federal government plan. We made sure from the steering committee to the central working group to the 26 technical working groups that we had the states, we had the local governments, in addition to federal MDAs, but a very large representation of the private sector, youths, women, people with disabilities. We also had representatives of the major political parties, 3 major political parties. Our intention is that this is a plan that should be owned by every Nigerian, and every Nigerian, every business, every ministry, department, and agency has a responsibility that is clearly defined in the plan. So it is truly a national plan. That's one. Secondly, from the beginning, we also set up an implementation structure for the plan. So there is a committee, a presidential committee that also has a cross-section of these representatives that is set up to continuously track the plan, and a plan implementation unit that is sitting in the Ministry of Finance, Budget, and National Planning, and their only function is to track the performance of this plan. We also costed the plan at 348 trillion naira, as I've also commend you for the introduction that has been done, with a clear identification of how much should be contributed by the government, which is 49.7 trillion, how much, and the balance to be raised by the private sector, and also from the government funding, how much is to be contributed by the federal government's 20 trillion and the balance from the states. So these are things that we didn't have clearly defined in other plans. Every plan must have a macro framework, which this plan has. The macro framework that we use is underpinned by we use the econometric model and also the computable general model. And the projection is generally informed by the design and strategic orientation of this framework. The framework projects an annual growth rate of 5% over the plan period. The growth is envisaged to come from high growth sectors like agriculture, trade, services, construction, manufacturing, communication, and a few others. The framework also identifies some binding constraints that we must continuously look out for and resolve. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve the targets of the plan. Some mega trends also globally, as well as some trends within the region are also considered in the plan, and specific mitigating measures are identified. A major constraint that we had to always look out for is the inadequacy of infrastructure in our country, and also what we must do to be able to put in place the right and level of critical infrastructure to enable businesses to grow and contribute to the growth aspirations that we have. This plan is actually hinged on the growth of the private sector, and the philosophy is partnership with the private sector, enabling the private sector to be able to run businesses, because the growth of the economy is not dependent on government, it's actually dependent on the contributions of the private sector. So there are some reforms, growth, and competitiveness issues that we also identified as cross-cutting issue in every sector of the plan, whether it is agriculture or manufacturing or oil and gas or mining. We continuously look at what reforms are going to be needed to ensure that we meet these growth aspirations. This plan comes in 3 volumes. So we have volume 1, which is the policy itself, and then volume 2 is the detail of this costing, the 348 trillion. And volume 3 is the reforms that must be undertaken, including legislative reforms and amendments to laws or acts, as well as also any laws or new acts that need to be put in place. This plan, we had a good representation of youths, women in every technical working group, people with special needs. So we listened to every sector of the society. And so it's a combination of a bottom up as well as top down approach that were used. In addition to that, we also identified, we worked through identifying the various funding sources that we must explore to be able to adequately fund the plan. There is a cross-cutting assumption that there must be fiscal discipline and institutional compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and also a drastic reduction in inefficiencies on government. One major requirement is that there must be a complete reform of the public service. If the public service doesn't work efficiently, this plan will be threatened just as other plans have been threatened. We also have a communications plan that is designed to not only educate everyone about what is in the plan, but also to enable its optics, including what is available for the private sector to be able to take part and actually contribute the way the plan anticipates that the private sector should be. I chaired the committee alongside with Mr. Atedo Peterside, who is the president of ANAP Foundation. And we had Nasima Man as steering committee members. Labour was also there represented. So it was a very interesting process. It was very intense. A lot of excellent work has been done, driven largely by this central working group chaired by Dr. Sarah Alade, who is a senior special advisor to the president, and Dr. Dikbelu, who is also another senior special advisor to the president, with several stakeholders working on a daily basis for several months to come up with this plan.
Honorable Minister, thank you. There seems to be so much going on in this new development plan. First, we're told it is a medium-term plan. It's supposed to succeed some initiatives like the ERGP and also the Vision 2020. Kindly deconstruct for us, in what context is this succeeding these initiatives?
So the ERGP was not an initiative. It was a national plan for 2017 to 2020. And the Vision 2020 also was a national plan, but a longer-term national plan, while the ERGP was a medium-term plan. So both plans expired in December 2020, which means we didn't have a national plan in place. So this plan succeeds those two plans is for a 5-year period from 2021 to 2025. And at the same time, we've started working on a longer-term plan that we call the Nigeria Agenda 2050. So the moment this one is launched and implementation started, we're already reverting our attention to the development of the longer-term plan. Every nation needs a plan to guide the implementation of governance in the country. We're very hopeful that because this is truly a national plan, that whichever government comes to succeed this administration, that they will continue with the major principles of the plan. The major objectives of the plan have been mentioned in your introduction. They are no-brainers that we clearly said we must establish a strong foundation of a strong, concentric, diversified economy with robust MSME growth and a more resilient business environment. Secondly, that we must invest in critical physical, financial, digital, and innovation infrastructure. And three, that we must build a solid framework that will be lynched on enhancing capacities to strengthen security and ensure good governance, and that we must enable a vibrant, educated, and healthy population. So those are the four objectives of the plan. Our belief is that whichever government is in power, we must be looking at diversifying, really deepening the diversification of the economy. We must invest in critical infrastructure. We must also be able to enhance and strengthen security and good governance, and that we must ensure that our population are well educated and they're healthy. So those are very basic things that we did, and we are very hopeful that the plan will succeed in implementation with all of the economic framework, the planning that has been done, as well as the continuous monitoring and implementation, and also the communications to back it up.
Sorry, just one more. Before Kingsley comes in, you kept on about the new plan being a truly national development plan. My question will be, is it national in terms of representation and constitution of, members, or is it national in terms of inclusivity in the deliverables to multi-level of, Nigerian citizens?
Both in the preparation as well as in the content of the plan and the implementation of the plan. We make sure that there's a regional, a development balance so that each region of the country has some major infrastructure or development projects that are provided to be implemented during the course of the plan period. And that's the whole point about making sure you have representation. When you have local governments represented and states represented and the public in different spheres represented, everybody speaks out to what their community or their sectors require, and inputs are taken, and then consensus is arrived at and it's incorporated into the plan. So it is meant to be a balanced development plan to make sure that no one is left, no spare of the country is left behind.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I get somewhat nostalgic now about national development plans that worked in the past, more particularly in the first, if you like, 15 years of our nation's independence. And I remember very well, as I said earlier, the General Gawan Development Plan of 1970 to 1974. It is the case that when you look at the infrastructural and industrialization component of that plan, that ultimately we were able to deliver the first expressways that we're having in Nigeria at some point. We also have the vehicle assembly plants with the clear idea, Volkswagen and PAN were both opened in 1975, with a clear indication that within 10 years, at least 70 to 80% of the components will be produced in Nigeria. And out of that was also the development of the steel complex at Ajakuta, plus the spin-off in other locations. We also had Steyr plant that was opened, I think, in Bauchi also. So these are issues that those who are nostalgic about development plans will be excited about to say, look, what is it that we can look forward to in 2021 to 2025 new national development plan? And particularly, therefore, my question would be, what is the industrialization component of this new national development plan, against the background that we have had an industrialization master plan for a few years now? I don't know where we are in terms of implementation. How does it fit in? And then when you look at other areas such as oil and gas, you also have a gas master plan. How does that fit into this national development plan?
We used each of the sector plans, so from agriculture to oil and gas to mining, education, health. Each of the sectors today have sector-specific plans. And each of those plans were reviewed, priorities extracted and put in the National Development Plan. So the National Development Plan helps to bring together all of those plans, and we're now able to compare and ensure that there's complementarity in the process between one plan and the other. Because the power sector, for example, would need to make their plans around what industry is requiring. And so also does the agricultural, the water resources sector will also need to make their plans to support the agricultural sector. So all of those plans were brought together. So we didn't come with blank and people started talking. No, we brought together the sector plans, and the plan was extracted. Priorities from each of those plans were extracted and brought into the national development to ensure cohesion and also ensure that we get the best out of each of the sectors.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you. Let's put you on hold for a moment and bring in our other guests who have also joined in our conversation. Let me go to our Benin studio, where we have Ambassador Ayola Lukane, who is also the DG of NACIMA. Well, NACIMA, of course, could be aptly described as the umbrella body of the private sector businesses and all that. If you look at the era that Kingsley talked about, the 1970-1974 development plan with all the successes that's under General Gowon and all the euphoria of the things that happened during then, does this new development plan bring you joy? Does it bring the private sector joy?
Thank you very much, Claire. Like I said, it's a pleasure to see the Honorable Minister on this program, and I say greetings to Nigerians and all other participants. I'm speaking to you from Benin, and where NACIMA is having its 4th ESCO as well as a council meeting. And it speaks to the fact that the issue which was raised by the Honorable Minister in terms of the question of ownership, as well as also what is going to happen at subnational level, is key and very, very important. That's why we go around the country, and I think this is where the focus will be. Of course, the Honorable Minister had identified why this plan is different, which gives us some joy in a way. But the heart of the matter, which should also be a matter of the heart for us in NACIMA and nationally, is the fact that implementation is key. Implementation is very, very important. And the potentials of implementation and having impact, especially through the national chambers, through the chambers across the country, is key and very important. Let me give you a very good example, because it's always very good, to concretize the abstractions. The Nsukka Chambers of Commerce has the program for the cultivation of the Nsukka yellow pepper. Nsukka yellow pepper project is being handled by that chambers. It brings together about 600 farmers who are in and around local government areas in Nsukka, and helping them in terms of getting access. The Anchor Borrowers program, of course, has supported that, especially because of the involvement of the chambers. About 50 hectares, are supposed to be cultivated. This year, they're doing about 8 hectares. Under that, the beauty of it is that this is a project to help about 600 farmers to export the yellow pepper, the Nsukka yellow pepper, things they would not have been able to do on their own. So they are ready to do this through that particular framework. And of course, it's also for export. And the dimension is that when you are exporting abroad, the packaging must be right. You must also keep on to issues like the global gap and all of that. So this is what we are talking about. It's a good example of the potentials, one, of ownership of this national program, talking about the agricultural sector, through an organized body like the Nsukka Chambers of Commerce, and of course supported by NACIMA, and also bringing in all this one, because at the end of the day, the Honorable Minister has talked about ownership. Ownership at what level? And I think ownership at the subnational level, at the local government level, is key and very important. And that's why I'm giving that example as far as the National Development Plan itself is concerned, because that is the heart of the matter, and it should be a matter of the heart for us. Implementation, especially at that level. You can imagine the impact. 600 farmers in a place like Nsukka, where the yellow pepper is being exported and targeted to Europe and America. And of course, to take care and deal with the issues in such of, as far as the question of funding itself is concerned. Well, they've received some funds under the Anchor Borrowers program, but there's still much to be done in terms of having this desired impact. This is our target as far as NACIMA itself is concerned, using our chambers to impact and be part and key into the National Development Plan. There are other issues which I will talk about subsequently during the course of the program. Once again, it's nice to see Honorable Minister, my dear colleague, Dr. Muda Yusuf as well. In terms of, I sincerely hope you understand the point I'm making as far as the question of practical implementation. And that's what we're doing at this level. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ayo Olukone, there for your opening comments. Let's bring in Dr. Muda Yusuf, former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Muda Yusuf, you're a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria when we're discussing economic matters. Are you excited about the new National Development Plan? And if so, why? Looks like we're not getting Muda. Namely, are you excited about the new National Development Plan? And if so, why? If not, why?
Yeah, thank you very much. And good morning, Nigeria. Let me also commend the Honorable Minister for the amount of work that has been done on this plan. I must also testify to the fact that it was a very inclusive process. The private sector was involved. At least I know that the LCCI was also involved in the process of bringing this up. So that I think we must commend. It is also important for us to have this kind of plan so that the private sector can also have a very clear sense of direction as to what the government intends to do. It also will help to inspire long-term investment, because sometimes when you don't have a clear sense of the horizon, especially the long-term horizon, in which government is operating, especially the policy framework, the vision, and all of that, it leads to a concentration of investment at the short end of the economy. So I think one must commend that. It's also important. One thing that's also exciting about this is the fact that the government, at least through this plan, recognizes the very critical role of the private sector in the economy. We talk about the investment size that the Honorable Minister has talked about. The private sector is expected to bring to the table 85.7%. That is quite significant. But the worry we have is that if we expect this much from the private sector, are we really creating the environment for the private sector to contribute this much? I think that, for me, is one major worry. Secondly, is the fact that I feel that the 14.3% investment that has been projected in this plan for the public sector is a bit on the conservative side, especially having regard to the fact that, yes, the private sector can contribute a whole lot, but the government also has a very big role to play in investing in this economy, particularly in infrastructure. I appreciate the fact that the private sector can do a whole lot, but I know that the private sector cannot provide all the infrastructure. The government needs to bring something significant to the table. I mean, take the example of United States, which is one of the leading market economies around the world. Only a few hours ago, the president of the United States signed an infrastructure bill of $1 trillion. $1 trillion. The same thing is happening in China and all of that. So I would like to see a lot more in terms of scaling up government investments, especially in infrastructure, because we are talking about investment, not just federal. We are talking about federal, we are talking about states, we are talking about federal. So we put all of this together, we should not be talking about 14.3%. And I think we need to do a lot. Then there is a worry about the issue of identity of each administration. Yes, the Honorable Minister has, very impressively laid out the plan and the need for all the succeeding administrations to plug into it. But from what we have seen, and this was also reflected in your intro, each administration wants to create an identity for itself. Even when you have a plan that is good, when you have programs that are good, each administration, whether at the federal or at the states, wants to create a separate identity for whatever reasons, maybe for political reasons or to be able to gain credit for whatever programs they do. And that has been a major problem. It has been one of the reasons why we are having a lot of abandoned projects all over the place. I mean, you talked about some of the previous initiatives that have taken place. You talk about Vision 2010. It was a very fantastic document. After that, we had the National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy, which was put in place by the Obasanjo regime. After that, we had the 7-point agenda by the Yar'Adua administration. Then we had the transformation agenda by the Jonathan administration. Then we had the Vision 2020. We have the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Now we are talking of a National Development Plan. So this issue is a major problem. Issue of identity of administration. And because of that, people set aside whatever programs or plans that has been existing before they came into office. And this is not just peculiar to federal. It's also the same thing at the state level. And that has not been, we are not seeing government sufficiently as a continuum, which is not a good thing. And that culture of sustainability, that culture of building on what the previous administrations have done, I think we should have a way to make sure that this kind of thing happens. So those are the concerns that we have. Then there's also the worry about the capacity to execute plans and the political will to do so. The Honorable Minister has mentioned quite a number of initiatives around the reforms that need to take place. Yes, some of these things are on the table, but when it comes to implementation, it's a lot of time we fight shy of the political will to get some of these reforms done. As we speak now, we have quite a number of reforms that we have been grappling with all along. Then we need to create the environment for the private sector. The private sector is still not getting the right kind of courtesy, the right kind of attention, the right kind of respect that it deserves, given its contribution to the economy of this country. And we need to do a lot more in that direction, a lot more in creating the macroeconomic environment, ensuring the stability in policy, ensuring that the regulatory environment is right. Of course, institutional issues and all of that. We are grappling with quite a lot of that. And sometimes when you have these issues, there's very little intervention that you find, because especially now that the government is so bullish about issue of revenue. So these are some of the worries that one has. Then issue of policy harmonization. We have different arms of government moving in different directions. I mean, this point was made by the Vice President at the recent retreat by the ministers. It's a major problem. You have a plan. What we expect is that all organs of government should plug into the plan so that we are sure that we are all moving in the same direction and we're on the same page. But you have this this territorial disposition of different organs of government, which is pulling the whole system apart. You have a plan, but people are operating in silos. So these are some of the risks that you see. But generally, I must commend the initiative. A lot of work had gone into it. It was a very inclusive process, but we need to deal with some of this, particularly creating the environment and giving the private sector the confidence that this is going to last, so that we can have a lot more long-term investments from the private sector.
Okay, Mr. Muda, just before we come back to the studio, I'd like you to explain further what you meant by 14% to the public sector being conservative. I'd just like you to give us a little in-depth, explanation of your thoughts. And then secondly, creating a conducive environment seems like, a general statement, specifically for the private sector. What are those enablers, that you will qualify as, enabling a private and conducive environment for you?
Now, about the 14.3%, the Honorable Minister has said it, that the investment size we are looking at in this plan is over 300 trillion. And that out of this investment plan, the private sector is expected to bring to the table 85.7% in terms of investment. And that the government, that's all the three tiers of government now, will be bringing 14.3% to the table. The point I'm making is that the 14.3% in terms of investment, particularly when we know that the government has a major role to play in infrastructure, not just the economic infrastructure, even the social infrastructure. So if you are talking about all the three tiers of government bringing 14.3% to the table in terms of the quantum of investment, I'm saying that that should be a lot more. And we can only make that happen if you look properly at the structure of our budget, so that you have a lot more resources committed to these investments, especially infrastructure investments. So that is the point I'm making. If you look at the structure of the budget of many of our governments, either federal, state, or local governments, in most cases, between 70 to 80% recurrent. So we are talking about a review of that kind of structure, so that you can put a lot more investment on the table to support the aspirations of this plan. So that is what I meant by the percentage of resources that are being committed. Then the second point which we raise has to do with the issue of the enabling environment. Yes, it's a general problem, but you can put it in a number of compartments. Take the macroeconomic environment, for instance. Look at what businesses have been going through around foreign exchange. Apart from the depreciation issue, we have the issue of liquidity, we have the issue of unpredictability, we have the issue of the volatility, we have the issue of, so many issues around foreign, which is making it very difficult, especially for both domestic and foreign investment. This is a major issue. Then you have the galloping inflation. It's a macroeconomic issue. How do we deal with, because if we don't have a stable macroeconomic environment, you cannot expect investors to be able to put investments in place for a very long time. Then we have the issue of policy consistency. We have seen situations where we have a plan. People have looked at the plan, they have looked at the tariff book, they know what the fiscal policies are, they know what the tax policies are, and they invest. Sometimes some of this investment can take 10 to 15 years for you to be able to recoup investment. And before you know it, 1, 2, 3 years down the road, there's a major policy shift. And these things have thrown a lot of businesses out of gear that cause a lot of dislocations. So those are the kind of things. Then you have the regulatory environment. Now, we have a regulatory space where many of the regulators sometimes are more interested in revenue than ensuring that we have a business environment that is very conducive. Then we have sudden changes in regulatory space. So the kind of attention, the kind of relationship that will occur between the regulatory space and the investment space is still not happening. So these are some of the things that is of concern. Look at the situation with our ports. We have been on this port thing for almost 2 to 3 years. You need to go through the ports to understand the frustration that both the importers and the exporters are facing. Then look at this dispute resolution system. If you have a commercial dispute now, it can take you 5, 10 years for you to be able to resolve. So these are some of the issues that I'm talking about when I talk about the enabling environment. Of course, you have infrastructure issue, rules, and all of that. Those are bit medium to long term, but I'm talking about things around policy, around institutions, around regulation. Those are the issues I'm talking about.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Muda Yusuf. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Now back to the studios, we've kept Niya Kinsiju waiting. Niya, let's have your take on the whole idea of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. Welcome, or?
Well, of course, I want to first commend the fact that the plan is well thought out. And naturally, for every plan, you expect certain limitations, even as you project implementation. But I am particularly impressed by the medium-term National Development Plan, as it were, as conceived. Yes, the former director of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce had made a number of issues around challenges, protected challenges and all that. But I have a feeling that the plan itself is supposed to address these challenges. That is why you have a plan. One, it is an identification and an acknowledgement of these problems, of these challenges. And the plan itself has multidimensional, approaches to attending and addressing these challenges. So to my mind, I think the plan would have to be commended, one, for acknowledging and identifying those challenges people like Dr. Muda, had been concerned about. So it's like, it's a journey to resolving those challenges. And for me, I think if we have a review of what had happened in our immediate past, especially with the economic recovery growth plan, I think we can start talking about accomplishments in the ERGP, that we can use as extrapolation from a development plan, as it were, that had been impactful, because everybody agrees that to a large extent the ERGP was able to deliver on the mandate, it was supposed, to secure coming from the recession in 2016. And of course, as we also get into the recession in 2020, the Economic Sustainability Plan also delivered on that. So I think going into the 2021-2025 plan, if the ERGP had been able to deliver one on reducing our food import, for instance, our food import bill as of 2014 was $3.4 billion, and by 2020 we are saying, at least by the NBS report, National Bureau of Statistics report, it had reduced to $560 million thereabout. Now, that's a major achievement. Now, it tells me that a plan can actually work, because a plan had been put in place over the last 4 or 5 years or thereabout, and it had been able to deliver on this. It's a major achievement, Then again, if you look at how the financial sector had been able to support local businesses, yes, it may not be enough, but if in the last, since the loan-to-deposit ratio policy of the CBN had been mainstreamed, more than 10 trillion naira had been created as new credits, for businesses, and not just businesses, even household consumption. So for me, again, that's also another major achievement. So we can start saying that the implementation of the 2021-2025 medium-term national development plan has already a pedigree of positive, appropriate implementation, because we have seen deliverables that are obvious and apparent from what the ARGP had been able to deliver, and even the economic sustainability plan. So going forward, I think the important thing is to start monitoring, all the objectives set out in the plan, and hoping, of course, that they would also deliver going forward on the 2021-25 plan. But I think more importantly is the fact that even the states are encouraged to domesticate the National Development Plan. So that it's no longer about the Nigerian National Development Plan. So each state now will also have its own development plan derived from the body of the National Development Plan, as it were.
Okay, Neye, thank you. Let's return to the Honorable Minister, who is joining us via Zoom. Honorable Minister, I know you've listened to the concerns raised by Muda and the Ambassador. It's concern about political capacity to implement and also capacity of the private sector itself to also deliver on the 85.7%, demands required of them. So how are you hoping, because by your is it terms of reference or a mandate, you're supposed to expand the capacity of the private sector to be able to deliver. What are the plans for this?
Well, Ambassador spoke about a lot of the challenges that the micro, small, medium enterprises face. But I'm glad to see that Nasima was fully represented and attended each and every one of our meetings, not just at the steering committee, but the central working group. And the essence was to understand these challenges so we have a good chance of putting in place reform measures that are required to address these challenges. And also, to the point that Dr. Muda made about the size of government projected investment being too low, at 49.7 trillion, almost 50 trillion, we don't think it's too low. Our view is that government should use its resources to unlock more resources, and also to be able to support the private sector to actually do these investments. It will not be government that will be able to do the major investment that is required for critical infrastructure in the country. So the government will just be deploying only social infrastructure and social services. But any infrastructure that has a capacity to generate revenue, even if it is to maintain itself, but also we feel that there's so much that the private sector can benefit from by investing in roads and tolling them, by taking over airports and running them, by taking over the rail lines and running them. So that's where we're coming from. And government should, whether a government at state, federal, and local government, should prioritize meeting the needs of the private sector. We should just be working to provide the welfare of security and welfare of citizens and meeting the needs of the private sector. If we do that and we prioritize regulations, making sure that the business environment is right, making sure the legislation that we're doing is to enable the private sector to do more, then we'll be able to support the private sector to attain that 85.7% that is defined in the plan. Again, government funding is supposed to be an enabler. It's supposed to be to unlock opportunities and also to unlock more resources. So while government puts its own resources on the table, it will be to attract, maybe a lot of times it should be a tokenism, but to attract private sector to come and invest alongside it, or to raise other investment resources or even financing to be able to deploy infrastructure. I also want to comment on the issue that Mr. Nee has said. There was a lot of time spent in this process trying to understand what the challenges are. And that was the whole essence of bringing every stakeholder to the table, including the National Assembly. So we had two members of the National Assembly planning committees of the House and the Reps as members. So they were there, they were also listening. In some cases, it will be legislation that is required. And how do we sustain this plan to make sure that this plan is not changed by another administration or abandoned for another one to be made? We have thought during the discussions that we may need to legislate the plan, but there are also limitations of doing that, because when you legislate a plan, then it reduces your flexibility of being able to make amendments to meet the current realities of the plan. But that is still a possibility for the Nigeria Agenda 2050, because that would be a visioning document that will set very high level goals, while the 5-year medium-term plans will be setting out implementation. And that needs to have flexibility of being able to amend with the realities of the time. Some countries actually legislate their long-term plans. So regardless of what government of the day comes, there's already a national plan that must be guided even by parties carrying through their manifesto. There are some basic things that must be done. For example, in the UK, their national health insurance is sacrosanct. There's no party that will come and tinker with that. So those are the kind of things that we want to be able to achieve also by this medium-term plan and the Nigeria Agenda 2050.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister and the other guests. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol, Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Dear compatriots, our country can be as great as we want.
Let us all commit ourselves to its greatness.
We must be willing to set aside our differences, unite and stay as one.
In our expansive landmass, human and material resources, and plurality lies our strength.
Let our challenges lead us to rediscover our common ground, and together, let's find solutions.
This will take some time, so it requires patience, tolerance, and forgiveness from every one of us.
Let all hands come on deck to protect and transform our country.
Let us unite and see each other not as adversaries, but as brothers and sisters.
Together, we can build a better Nigeria for ourselves and for the next generations.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, with support from Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria must overcome Blue Sharks of Cape Verde on the road to Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup. Will they be successful? At the testing below the stadium, it's Nigeria versus Cape Verde in the African World Cup qualifier, showing on the network service of the NTA and Wazobia TV. With live radio broadcasts on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join us online at sporty.com and MPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by Bet Niger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have all our guests with us for this conversation. I want to return to the Honorable Minister of Finance. Honorable Minister of Finance, let's get into what some persons would say is a very critical component of all of this, whether we're making projections for the key pillars, that's to say human capital development, social development, and indeed economic growth. For whom are we planning? How many Nigerians are we planning for? There's a projection for 5% growth over the period, but for what number of Nigerians? We're having a population growth now of over 3% annually, and some say that is giving us a demographic crisis. And the fertility rate is about 5.5. So have these been factored in for us to say, look, these are the number of Nigerians we'll be planning for against 2025 and then beyond?
Indeed. We did factor in population. The Federal Ministry of Health is working on revising the national population policy. The National Population Agency was also a member of this committee. So we started with the baseline. The current numbers that are around now is 209 million Nigerians. And we factored in an increase of 2.5% on an annual basis over the 5-year period. Our hope is that when we come to the longer term plan, that will begin to also measures that are in the revised population plan that is currently ongoing, that is designed to begin to bring down the population numbers, that will not be able to take into account those declining numbers. But for now, the baseline is 209 million population, and an increase of 2.5% per annum is projected over the 5-year period. When we see the new population plan that the Health Ministry is working on, when it's completed, if we have to adjust the numbers, then with the macro framework that we have, we can do a midterm review and adjust the numbers.
I was also wondering, Honorable Minister, if you can just give us the highlights, the two critical elements of this. Talk about revamping the public administration and then human capital development. What is it that we have been able to do or utilize with ASCON, which is the Administrative Staff College of Nigeria at Tukpo in Badagry, which is of course an outgrowth of planning in the past. In recent years, we've been talking about Bureau of Public Service reforms. What do we want to reform about the public administration? Is the public service delivering on its mandate, or it's just a source of the huge recurrent expenditure that the country witnesses year in, year out?
So the reforms are targeted at achieving efficiency within the service, ensuring value for money, and also curtailing corruption and leakages that currently exist. I don't know if you remember about, I think whether it's 4 weeks or 5 weeks ago, the Federal Executive Council approved the new public service reform policy that was presented by the head of service. It's a work that has been going on for about 2 years, and it's finally being concluded. There's a lot of revisions on the structure of the service that needs to take place. There's a committee that has been set up to review the Oresanya report, and they've been given, I think, something like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to come back with how organizations need to be revised to be able to get the best efficiencies to cut down on wastages. Automation is already ongoing. The head of service is working with us in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning on automating the human resource component of the IPPIS, which was not done before, but it's almost complete. The work is almost completed now. And there's also the e-governance that the head of service has picked up. My ministry, for example, we have a document management system that we're now able to actually work virtually in some of our major functions. So those efficiencies are very critical for improving the public service, for improving the regulatory processes, and for cutting down on time that is wasted, that is bureaucracy, and wastage is that the private sector ends up carrying the brunt of.
Honorable Minister, let's bring in Ambassador Ayola Olukoni. Ambassador, earlier on you talked about the yellow pepper growing company or outfit in the southeast, which of course has not yet been explored. And there are so many of such opportunities, scattered in different parts of the country, especially in the different economic clusters. So bearing that in mind, do you think that the private sector is vibrant enough or have the capacity to be able to contribute or meet up with the 85% requirement? And if not, what can be done to rev up, their potentials to deliver?
Quickly, because I know time is not in our favor. If you look at the Nigerian creativity sector, it's a very good example of what is a private sector initiative as well. Your Nollywood, your film studio, our artist is a reflection of the possibility of what can be done by the private sector. Now, if you look at the growth and development and as well as the Nigerian banks and financial sector across the world, I served in Nairobi for about 4 years as part of my course. When I served 2003, 2007, there are no Nigerian banks. The Nigerian banks are all over the place now. So it's an indication that as far as the private sector itself is concerned, we can perform in that particular area. I mean, we've performed in terms of the Nigerian banks across the West Coast. I'm wearing an ethnic fabric. The authentic Ogun fabric is there. It's an indication of the potentials of the private sector as far as the textile sector is concerned. Ethnic fabrics that can go on to Champs-Élysées, that can also go on to Fifth Avenue, New York. Now, let me now say a few things as we round off. I think the question how we succeeded with the ERGP is there. We succeeded because of the commitment and also involving people at the national level, at the subnational level. So implicitly, we can also succeed with this national plan. Now, we are here in Benin, like I said, for the 4th ESCO Council of NACIMA. And we are being hosted by BENCIMA, that is the Benin Chambers of Commerce, that is doing its trade fair now. We will be seeing the governor. It is fortuitous that the Edo State government has also now unveiled its own national plan, 30 years plan. So implicitly, this is an action at the subnational level. And this is one of the messages we are bringing about in here, that states at the subnational level should wake up to it in terms of what can be done. And since the private sector is being challenged, I tell you that as DG NACIMA receives requests from abroad almost every day in terms of, please identify for us credible companies we can work with. I can give you the good example. Just recently, the QDB. QDB is the Qatar Development Bank that wants to come into the Nigerian space to work closely with the private sector. So it's an indication of the potentials as far as the private sector itself is concerned, and that we can deliver. But the key issues which has been raised by my brother, Dr. Muda Yusuf, is also there. And also, finally, take, for example, the mining sector. I used to, quote somebody, finally, who say that I also became an accidental miner because I was our High Commissioner to Australia. And I saw what mining did as far as Australia itself is concerned. A state in Australia was earning $60 billion from iron ore export. Look at Kogi State. Look at our potential in that particular place. So what we are doing in NACIMA is to encourage our mining states, your Kogi, your Nasarawa, your Ebonyi, all over the place, to encourage them to key into the mining sector. And since they say it's going to be the private sector, that will, of course, drive that process. It means that these states can set up special purpose vehicle to harness the mining potentials in their respective states. And I think this is it. And I think at the end of the day, it is not the national development plan, like the minister said, for Abuja. No, the state's government should also come up with initiative to be able to do that. And like I said, the Chambers movement is a sure bet to be able to key into this national development and deliver on its goals as well as objective of it itself. And I think this is very key. This is very important. This is our vision in NACIMA, and we'll continue to pursue that.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Olokoni, for your comments. We are pressed for time. Of course, we have the opportunity of returning to this subject matter and dealing with it in greater detail. I just wanted to touch on one or two aspects with Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Muda Yusuf, let's take, for instance, human capital development. That's a pillar of the development plan. I don't have the details, but I will be curious to find out. Again, I have this sentimental attachment to the last major development plan that we had in the country. To say, what is the projection for us during this period? How many Nigerians do we want to go to school, primary school, secondary school, and then tertiary education? Who will be providing the schools? Who will be providing the teachers? If it's private sector versus public sector, who contributes what? Are we still going to be issuing licenses for the establishment of private universities, just as we are seeing now with also radio and television licenses all over the place? Are we still, where is the component of teacher training? I tell you that I'm sentimental about this because if you recall, in 1974, the federal military government at the time was already planning, was already implementing aspects of what became UPE, that's Universal Primary Education, in 1976, through the expansion of the teacher training program, through the expansion of the NCE program, through the establishment of all kinds of measures that will ensure that once you have this delivery process, people are coming out from primary school, they are getting to secondary school, they are getting into tertiary institutions. Are we likely to see that kind of assembly line in this particular instance, so that it is not just sufficient that I go to the Ministry of Education maybe in Lagos or elsewhere, and I'm given approval to go and set up a private school. For whom am I doing this? And does it fit into the national plan? Do we have this kind of holistic, gel of the critical issues in terms of human capital development? If we say we want to produce 1,000 neuroscientists by year 2025, are we ready for it? If we want to produce 1,000 aeronautical engineers, are we ready for it?
Yeah, thank you. Although I have not seen the full details of the plan, but I'm very positive that these concerns that you have raised have been properly captured in the plan, especially given the very robustly inclusive approach that the ministry and all those who are putting together the plan have adopted. So I imagine that all this because issue of human capital development in Nigeria has become a public-private sector issue. Just as we see in health, we also see in education. The private sector is playing a major role in both health and education. And I know that health and education investments are very critical to human capital development. I think what is important in all of this is for us to ensure that there is proper regulation so that we are channeling the programs, the curriculum, and we're ensuring that because the economy is dynamic. Therefore, the curriculum also has to be dynamic. So we need to ensure a proper alignment of both the industry needs and the curriculum of schools. So it's largely a regulatory issue, and I'm also confident that by the time we unveil, we see the full details of this plan, this particular concern will have been addressed. But having said that, let me quickly just mention few things. First, just to seize the opportunity of the presence of the Honorable Minister to emphasize the need for policy harmonization and coordination among the key economic ministries and agencies. The Central Bank, the Finance Ministry, the Customs, the Trade and Investment Ministry, the Ministry of Agri, NIPC, all of them. We want to see a proper harmonization, a proper coordination, a clearing house, so that this will remove some of the uncertainty, some of the concerns that investors have. Secondly, I want to appeal to the Honorable Minister to please ensure that we see the customs play a much more role in trade facilitation. The Nigeria Customs is too focused on revenue, and in the process, they are halting investment. So please, Honorable Minister, you have oversight over the Nigeria Customs Service. let us see a greater emphasis in the issue of trade facilitation, particularly issues around the dispute resolution system that is credible, that is independent, that can inspire confidence, especially in the international trade process. I also like to appeal to the Honorable Minister to review the rules in tax tribunals. If there is a dispute between the tax authorities and investors, the rule that says that the investor has to pay 50% of the amount in dispute before the appeal can be heard. It's not fair. Please, we want to appeal to the Honorable Minister, if you can please review these rules so that people can have easy access to appeal, not putting a barrier that they have to pay 50% of the amount in dispute before the appeal can be heard. These are very critical elements when we say we are promoting investment and want to get the private sector to play a major role in the delivery of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Muda. Thank you, Muda. Let's take the final response from Niyi. Niyi, I'm also concerned when we look at the funding sources. Already, part of what we know is that there'll be broadening of the tax base. That's for the public sector to contribute the 14 point. But what are your thoughts? If Muda is saying 14% is too small, and the minister is saying, no, we don't think it's too small, what other areas can, funds, be sourced from?
No, I think the honourable minister is clear on this, and I think the plan also is clear on this. For me, the 14% is not too small because it's supposed to be an enabler. It's supposed to stimulate activities in the private sector, and there have been advocacy over the years, on why the Nigerian private sector should drive our economy, and I think that is the challenge this plan is giving the private sector. One. All the issues Dr. Yusuf had raised had to do with policy and coordination of and harmonization of all these policies. So it's principally about government addressing those issues. They are not fiscal issues in the real sense of it. So, and of course, going forward, what the plan is also talking to is robust private-public partnership. That's what the plan is talking to. So the readiness, to concede to concession projects, to the private sector. So for me, it's about enabling the private sector and of course also enabling foreign direct investment. That is one particular area we have had shortfalls, in Nigeria over the years. So if we have just about 20 to 25% increase in foreign direct investment. I'm talking foreign direct investment. I'm not talking about foreign portfolio investment here, that hot money. But money that you are sure will come into the Nigerian economy, will stabilize for 15 to even 30, 40 years, You will provide a lot of economic activities, and of course, it will also enhance our revenue. So going forward, your concern still talks to policy harmonization. Properly conceived policies and properly implemented policies. Once those ones are in place, there was a time we were talking on this program on why we cannot have a rail line from Kogi, to Abuja. And it had to do with policies on PPPs. So I think this plan is talking to how PPPs would be implemented across segments of the economy.
All right, Niyi Akinseju, thank you very much. And indeed, the other guests would like to appreciate. And Claire, we were speaking a while ago in terms of aspects of the human capital development. I'm sure by the time we have access to the fuller document, some of these things probably could be there. I mean, Dr. Mohammed Bello, who is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, is a clinical oncologist, a consultant. It tells you about the paucity of oncologists in Nigeria. These are cancer specialists. So how many of them do we intend to produce over the next 5 years or over the next 10 years? Several other areas that you can look at and say, look, what are our shortages, and then how do we ramp up production by granting scholarships and so on and so forth. So that's it for our conversation segment. We'd like to thank all our guests who have been with us this morning. The Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Hajiya Zainab Ahmed. She joined us via Zoom from Lagos. We also would like to thank Dr. Muda Yusuf, former DG of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also with us via Zoom. From Benin City, the capital of Edo State, Ambassador Ayo Olukone, Director General of NACIMA. Delight having you. I hope you enjoy in the ancient city of Benin. And here in the studios, Niya Akinsiju, Financial and Investment Analyst. Deep thanks for being part of our conversation this morning. So let's go over now to the Sports Desk.
The Super Eagles delegation, led by team captain Ahmed Musa, insists they will secure a win against Cape Verde in their final group qualifier. The 2-0 victory in Tagia over Lone Star meant the Eagles have won all their away matches in the qualifying series and need only a draw against the Blue Sharks of Cape Verde on Tuesday to progress into the final knockout round of African Series for quarter 2022. They have scored 2 goals in each of their away games, with a 2-1 defeat of the Sharks on the island of Mindilo and 2-0 defeats of Central African Republic and Liberia in Douala and Tagia, respectively. The team is not thinking of a draw, but their mindset is to win and reach the final round of the World Cup Series without any story. Victory or draw against the Sharks will send Eagles, who have 12 points, into the knockout round, with the Visitors, who are on 10, needing to win to make progress at Nigeria's expense. Already Senegal, Egypt, Mali, Morocco and DR Congo qualify for the final round, with African champions Algeria expected to have no trouble doing the same. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic began his attempt to equal Roger Federer's record number of ATP Finals triumphs with a straight set 7-6, 6-2 win over Casper Ruud on Monday.
Much more comfortable second set than the first for Novak Djokovic, who begins his bid for a 6th title at this new venue.
World number 1 Djokovic is looking to complete a remarkable year with his 6th finals title after only just